You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I think I better learn to talk very fast in these programs so I can fit everything possibly in. Well, not really, but no matter what I do, I'm behind the curve. I can't seem to stay up with things no matter how I try because the news is breaking and shattering all over the floor every single second. And if I were lodged permanently inside your ear, blabbing away at you 24/7, we still couldn't cover everything. Not that you'd want that, but in any event, I'm just saying. So, we do have a strong show for you today with two great guests, and before we do any of that, we're going to go inside the headlines. I assume you know by now that the 7 countries from which travelers are barred from entering the U.S. by Trump's infamous ban, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Sudan, Somalia, and Yemen. Those 7 countries are, according to Bloomberg News, places where the Trump Organization has no business pending or in existence. Furthermore, no terrorists or threats to U.S. Homeland Security have come from those 7 countries, unlike Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, UAE, and Azerbaijan, on the other hand, where Trump does have properties, but which are exempt from the ban. Amazing. Not only did the ban generate domestic and global protests and inspire a statement from former President Obama expressing support for the protests, it elicited a blessing from Daesh ISIL leader Baghdadi himself. It provoked alarmed criticism from national security experts and the tech industry, and it even prompted condemnation from dozens of Republicans and major GOP donors, including, oh my God, the Koch brothers. Home run, Donald. Deeper inside the headlines and right in the newsroom, there's teeth gnashing among journalists at the Wall Street Journal, which has a history of seriously right-wing editorial stands, but a tradition of independent reporting. The anger is over a directive from editor-in-chief Jerry Baker to stop using the phrase 7 majority Muslim countries in covering Trump's immigration order. Baker sent an internal email on Monday that the newsroom leaked, urging that the paper follow the Trumpian correct line and that, quote, "we stop saying 7 majority Muslim countries. That's very loaded. Would be less loaded to say 7 countries the U.S. has designated as being states that pose significant or elevated risks of terrorism." Period. Close quote. Other major news outlets, like the New York Times, have generally referred to the impacted countries as majority Muslim nations, but Trump and his court object to that terminology and to the characterization of the order as a Muslim ban. This despite the fact that Trump himself uses the words Muslim ban. A Wall Street Journal source told Politico that Baker's email caused serious tensions in the newsroom, as has that paper's soft coverage of Trump. The source said, "For the editor-in-chief of a major American paper to whitewash this is unconscionable." Hooray for the journalists at the Wall Street Journal, and shame on the editor-in-chief. Those reporters aren't alone, though. There's growing agitation and pushback within institutions. Barely more than 2 weeks into the new administration, federal workers are regularly consulting former Obama-era appointees about what they can do to push back against Trump initiatives. According to the Washington Post, some federal employees have set up social media accounts to anonymously leak word of secret, illegal changes that Trump appointees are trying to make. Dozens of federal workers attended a support group for civil servants seeking a forum to discuss their opposition to Trump, and 180 federal employees have signed up for a workshop where experts will offer advice on workers' rights and on how they can express civil disobedience. Meanwhile, State Department dissent keeps mushrooming over the refugee and Muslim ban. The new Secretary of State, ExxonMobil's Rex Tillerson, passed Senate approval with the highest number of negative votes in history. He now faces a foreign and diplomatic service in revolt. Within a few hours of Trump's ban, a descent cable starting out in Washington went to Jakarta across Africa, and by 4 p.m. the first day had attracted more than 1,000 protest signatures from embassy, consulate, USAID, and other State Department diplomats and employees all around the globe. Of course, if Tillerson fires them all, he faces a depleted personnel infrastructure at the Department of State. Trump's press secretary's answer was that if they didn't like his policies, they should quit. It's a related response to Trump counselor Steve Bannon telling the press to shut up. And while we the people hit the airports, streets, and campuses across the U.S. in gorgeously spontaneous protests to the ban, again with solidarity demonstrations around the world, while all that was happening, I couldn't help noticing that the first 4 judges in district courts who placed emergency stays on deportation were a mix of Democratic and Republican, but all were women. And that's not even mentioning the courage of Acting Attorney General Sally Yates, who knew her firing would be on the way and defied Trump's unconstitutional order anyway. I sure hope Sally Yates runs for office. Then there was that interesting unknown woman who infiltrated the Republican retreat a week ago in Philadelphia using counterfeit credentials to identify herself as a lawmaker's wife who made audio recordings that she then distributed to the press. The recordings demonstrated chaos, alarm, and fear in the Republican House and Senate caucuses, but nobody has yet been able to find out just who this strange infiltrator was. She was a sister. I know that. Oh, there's heaps more. The unprecedented non-disclosure agreements that aides to the House Judiciary Chair Bob Goodlatte were forced to sign when they secretly were forced to work on Trump's immigration directive. There is the also unheard-of move made by Senate Finance Committee Chair Orrin Hatch to change the rules and ram through proposed Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Tom Price, Trump's pick for the Department of Health and Human Services. Rules? What the hell are rules for? Off with their heads. The White House, meanwhile, is boycotting CNN, trying to punish the network and force down its ratings for not being nice. I could go on, but let's take a lateral leap to 2 more positive items. The U.S. Mint will release a commemorative gold coin in April that will feature Lady Liberty as a black woman, marking the first time she's been depicted as anything other than white on the nation's currency. The coin, with a $100 face value, will commemorate the 225th anniversary of the Mint's coin production. It's part of a series of commemorative coins to be released every 2 years. Future ones will show Lady Liberty as Asian, Latina, and Native American to, quote, reflect the cultural and ethnic diversity of the United States, the Mint said. The Treasury Department announcement came at a pivotal moment, just barely squeaking through 1 week before the transfer of power in January. And if you're up for making some headlines, well, President's Day demonstrations are coming up, and those on March 8th, International Women's Day, and April 15th, Tax Day protests to demand Trump release his returns, and April 22nd, Earth Day, when a major March for Science is planned in Washington. Finally, check out this week's activist goodie, Sleeping Giants on Facebook, or on Twitter, it's at SLPNG_Giants, at SLPNG_Giants. One screenshot, and you're stopping racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic propaganda websites by stopping their ad dollars. The current focus is Breitbart News. So you go to Breitbart, you take a screenshot of an ad next to some of their content, you tweet the screenshot to the company with a polite note, non-offensive, notifying them of the placement of their ad and of your disapproval, and you tag at SLPNG_Giants so they can keep track of the progress. It's fun and effective to become a sleeping giant, one that's awake. Oh, and by the way, I just learned that during the hour or so since I began writing these notes, Trump has abruptly cut short a contentious phone call with our ally, the Prime Minister of Australia, demonstrated utter ignorance as to who Frederick Douglass was, urged Mitch McConnell to go nuclear, and destroy the Senate filibuster, empowered rabid Mike Flynn to saber rattle at Iran, and threatened to invade Mexico. See what I mean? Hard to keep up. It's time to take a short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, but I'll be back directly with a woman who has invented an action that takes 90 seconds and that each of us can do each day, fast, easy, absolutely terrific, and make a great impact. And that's coming right up.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back with my first guest. You know, years ago I wrote a poem which had the line, "Ordinary is a word that has no meaning." And as I watch citizens across this country, quote, ordinary citizens, as the press refers to them, rise up and act like full, empowered, outraged citizens, the gladdening in my heart remembers that line. What does ordinary mean? Ordinary can mean extraordinary, and that certainly describes this guest. Laura Moser, a few weeks after the election, in that despair that everybody was feeling, and the hopelessness and the helplessness, and people saying, what can I do? How do I don't know which way. She filled that gap. DailyAction.org is how she filled it, and she's here to talk with us today about this wildly useful, successful, easy, revolutionary act that we can be a part of. Here is Laura Moser. Laura, welcome to Women's Media Center. It's
great to be here.
It's so good to have you here. You and DailyAction.org. Wow. You are this perfect incarnation of the sort of the accidental activist who becomes a political leader in this country because of what you decided to do. And this is happening all over the country. And in no small part to your actions. Tell the listeners about DailyAction.org, how it came to be and what it is.
Sure. So Daily Action is a daily column tool that every day I send a short text message to people all over the country with one targeted action about, to resist the Trump agenda. It was originally not so specifically about Trump because in the week after the election, there was still some hope that he would be a reasonable kind of New York or centrist-style leader. But as that quickly became clear that he wasn't going to be that type of leader, we've shifted our focus to, opposing his cabinet picks and, any extreme choice that he's made, his Muslim and refugee ban. I mean, it's not hard to come up with topics.
Oh no!
And I had never done anything like this until the election, which was obviously devastating for lots of people. Both my children were born during the Obama years, and I really felt like the world was, or at least our country was turning into a more inclusive place. So after the election, I just really wanted to be of service. And I stumbled into this because my husband's company actually has the software, and I'm a writer and journalist by profession, so I think I'm good at communication. So I thought, well, let's wed these two things, this text messaging software with, I'm a news hound. I know what's happening in the world. Let's try to see if I can put together one thing, because everyone wants to do something, but we don't have time.
That's right. Right. Everybody's overwhelmed because the issues are coming so thick and fast. There's even on this program, no matter how it's a weekly show and I can't stay up, I can't keep up. But so I'm always behind the curve. But my only comfort is that even CNN, which is 24/7, is sometimes behind the curve. Because news is breaking so fast. But this is a very simple process that you've set up that makes, for the average citizen who wants to be a part of this tremendous upswell of protest that to try and keep the values of this country alive, it makes it easy for them. That you just tell about the process. You tell. You go online and you find dailyaction.org and then
you just enter your phone number and your zip code, and then you're signed up. And every morning about 9:00, whatever time zone you're in, you get a text message, and it just tells you one thing to do, and you just tap the phone number in the text message, and then it's a short recording with me explaining as best I can in 30 seconds why we're calling, what the issue is, what we're asking our elected representatives to do, and then you just press your zip code and you're instantly connected to your representative. I'm now recommending that everyone have in their phone directory the least crowded office of the representative, just programs so you can call them all the time. But there's obviously a power in everyone calling about the same issue on one day. If you get 10,000 calls about Betsy DeVos on the day she's been confirmed, then that's more powerful than if you get a trickle of calls about 10 different issues.
That's right.
And triaging, as you said, is very hard. It's very hard to figure out what to focus on, what miscarriage of justice or subversion of the Constitution will target.
But it increases the power of one's phone call tenfold to be part of the focus. And also, Laura, tell why it's more important to call than to send an email.
That was another thing that kind of inspired this project. The New York Times had an article a few weeks after the election about if you write an email, it just kind of goes into a box or it's filed away, they count it. But if you're calling, you're actually engaging with people, with real people. They might be 23-year-old, Georgetown graduates, but you're actually taking up time, making them focus on you in a way that emailing doesn't. I don't say that emailing is bad, and I really encourage people to do that and to fax. All of that's much better than leaving Facebook comments and stuff, but you really need to engage a human, and that's what phone calls do. Your calls and your callers, this cadre across the country with thousands of people who now depend on that morning guidance from you, that has influenced House Republicans to back down on plans to gut the Independent Office of Congressional Ethics, for one, isn't it? I mean, we did. Yeah, they said that
they were flooded
to an overwhelming. Yeah, and we did that as soon as I heard it. I put up the call and had it for early the next morning, and I always tell people that there are. We pushed very hard against the nomination of Rex Tillerson because we thought there were three vulnerable Republicans on the committee,
right?
And it turns out he will go through. And I just tell people that we will have defeats.
Of course,
there will. But it's okay. You just have to, keep at it and don't give up.
Well, also those, they're defeats and they're not defeats. They're defeats on the issue that moment itself. But recently, for example, we had one of the founders of indivisibleguide.org on the show just last week, in fact, and she was saying, there's a in a sense, there's a long tail to our current protest because it does, even the Women's March itself. I mean, it's not going to influence Trump. Trump is stark raving, ready to be committed into the nearest possible asylum, and Bannon and the white male supremacists around him. We're not trying to influence them, but Congress has to go back to their districts and has to face their voters. And also, I might add that all of these protests have a singularly beneficial effect on the press, which has suddenly woken up and discovered, oh my God, I have a spine, and I'm going to act like a free press for a change. And
that's all we have right now.
That's all we have. That's right.
I wish we had more Democrats, but we're working.
Well, I think that they're getting the message of sort of like, oh my God, maybe saying we're going to work with them when it's sensible and not when it's not is not going over well with your own base. So get with the program, This is just incredibly exciting. And you now have, within 2 weeks of starting this, you had something like 15,000 subscribers. Now what's the approximate number of subscribers?
I actually just looked it up right seconds before coming on. It's now 175,000.
Oh, Laura, my God.
I know, which I feel, the population of a small southern city. So that comes with its own challenges. Today's been my first call to senators since we had such a huge swell in callers, and it's been fine. I've just been segmenting it into time zones so that not everyone gets the text at once. And,
right. Wow.
People are calling, and
wow.
I'm worried that if people don't get through, they'll give up, but they're not.
No.
I mean, we know it's at stake here.
Yes, of course.
And also, there's a community on my Facebook page where people are saying, "Oh, if Bill Nelson can't be reached here, try him here," and people are just kind of supporting each other, and you feel the stakes are high.
It's amazing.
People are coming together, Yeah. And I love to be part of that.
Well, you're the heart of it. I mean, and that's one of the things that I love about this is that you are, just one of us. You are an ordinary citizen. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a novelist, you're a journalist, you have a career, but you're also taking care of your kids, and you just had enough. and decided to do something really useful and creative about this. People can also just, is this still operative? You can text the word daily, DAILY,
yes,
to the number 228466. That's action. 228466 is ACTION. So you text the word daily to the word action, and then you're prompted to enter your zip code, and then you're signed up,
and
right?
Then you're set. That's right.
Yeah.
Very easy.
Yeah. To make it this clear and this simple and this accessible and easy to do is just absolutely brilliant. And how do you pick the issue of the day? I mean, given the fact that it's raining down on us 24/7.
That's the big challenge. I have a close friend, who I met when my husband was on the Obama campaign, and we kind of confer at night. He's in San Francisco. And we kind of, we did a Steve Bannon action today, and I really hesitated doing one because Senate doesn't really have discretion over, White House advisors.
Right.
But I've gotten so many requests, hundreds of requests today.
Yes.
We have to do something about this. And I said, fine. So I said, okay, let's come up with a way that we can, while knowing these limitations, we need to draw senators' attention to it. And some senators I've heard today are getting a little testy because, hey, we can't do anything about it. But you know what? You can put a hold on Jeff Sessions. You can refuse to vote
That's right.
for Betsy DeVos. You can shut down the Senate until that man is gone, even if you can't directly vote to confirm him.
That's right.
Because knowing the Republicans, they would vote to confirm him anyway. I mean,
yes, they
someone
would.
Someone wrote he can, there just seems to be no limits on what he can do. And I do hope our calls, we're getting more and more red state callers too, and I hope that's having an impact in giving, 50% of Republicans didn't vote for Trump in the primary. Many people in Congress are not for him.
Right.
They're happy to gut Obamacare, but they're not on board with some of the extremist,
That's
white
right.
nationalist stuff going on, but they're willing to sign up for it, and maybe the popular uproar will cause them to examine their consciences a little more than they have.
Yeah, Bannon must go as fast as possible. I mean, he is
right. And we need to raise our voices on that subject, whether or not we can have a direct impact.
Right.
On that
Well,
decision.
it's possible that only hundreds of thousands of people 24/7 surrounding the White House saying ho ho ho, Bannon must go. It's possible that short of that he won't, but everything
I don't even think he will.
Even no, he'll have to be walked out in hand.
He'll have to insult Trump's pride.
Yeah, that's right.
Somehow.
Well, the New York Times was doing something interesting. They had an editorial headed President Bannon ? And of course, that's the kind of thing that goes right through
that
Trump.
Insult.
Trump.
Exactly.
Yeah, Trump's ego gets involved. It's like, you made a headline and I didn't. Do they think I'm your puppet? Oh, and then we're back onto puppets. So,
right.
Oh my God, Laura, you are a gift to democracy. The goddess's gift to democracy. Again, it is daily action.
As are you. Thank you.
dailyaction.org. You go online, you find dailyaction.org. You can easily sign up in a few seconds, or with your smartphone, you can text the word, you can dial ACTION 228466 and then text the word daily, DAILY, and then you'll be prompted to enter your zip code, and that's it. Every morning, every weekday morning, you will get a helpful guidance. And then, and again, once you are briefed on the issue with a 30-second background, which means that you can argue with somebody if they'll argue with you at the office you're calling, then you just touch your zip code and you're connected with the office that you need to call. This is so great. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've all got to stay in the fight.
We definitely do, and you're just wonderful. You win my Hero Worker of the Day award, or even more. You're just great, sister. Thanks again, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. Oh, wow, it boggles the mind. In a staggering show of tin-earness, the White House announced the Muslim and refugee ban on International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The White House statement on International Holocaust Remembrance Day didn't mention Jews or anti-Semitism. Following the ensuing uproar, which managed to unite both Jews and Muslims in the uproar, spokeswoman Hope Hicks said, quote, "Despite what the media reports, we are an incredibly inclusive group and took into account all of those who suffered, period, close quote. Too bad, Jews. Oh, they also didn't mention the pink triangles. Too bad, gays." And not a peep of objection from Orthodox Jews Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, busily off celebrating the Sabbath. Now, it may seem a frivolous note given all that we're facing, but we do know that Hollywood has an enormous impact in modeling cultural roles and norms. So I urge you to go to womensmediacenter.com and download for free the WMC 2017 analysis of gender and Oscar nominations at a glance. Now, it may make you want to pick at your nearest movie theater in between all the other picketing that you're doing, because here's just a sample. Men garnered 80% of the nominations for all 19 non-acting categories. Men took 86% of nominations for adapted screenplay, 83% for film editing, and 100% of the nominations for writing, directing, and cinematography. Only in the category of documentary short subject did women actually achieve 50% of the nominations. This is appalling, disgusting, and, in 2017, it's surreal. But it's an important piece of research from the Women's Media Center. Sexually transmitted diseases are at an unprecedented high in the United States, with almost 55,000 new infections each day. 1 in 3 people have an STD and might not even know it. And STDs are really serious. If untreated, they can kill. This is what happens when you shut down Planned Parenthood clinics. A father and son in Ohio have been charged with multiple counts of rape for having kept a stepdaughter, age 13, and her even younger sister raped and chained in a basement for 3 years, feeding them spoiled leftovers and forcing them to urinate in a bucket with ammonia. The older girl finally managed to unchain herself and escape, and the trial begins this month. The father, Timothy Siboro, and his son Estan plan to cite the Bible as their defense, claiming, quote, "It's the only law book that truly matters and is a vital part of everything we do and of our defense," period, close quote. The judge has allowed the two to bring their Bibles to the trial, but told them it is not a law book in the court of law. Meanwhile, an Indiana mother argued that her decision to beat her young son with a coat hanger was driven by her religious beliefs. She asked the charges be dropped, arguing that Indiana's Religious Freedom Restoration Act, signed by now Vice President, then Governor Mike Pence back in 2015, protected her from prosecution. Her request was denied. Meanwhile, de facto acting President of the United States, Steve Bannon, he of the proudly white nationalist and male supremacist background, who is now ensconced in our National Security Council, has boasted aloud that he wants to destroy all American institutions. Bannon, you remember, was the main force behind pushing the Muslim ban and the wall so early in Trump's administration. But hey, turns out those are only partial measures. Recently, he has wondered aloud in an interview, quote, don't we have a problem with legal immigration? After all, 20% of this country is immigrants. Isn't that the beating heart of this problem of native-born Americans being unable to find good jobs? Close quote. People, he really said this. Bannon has long identified himself with his mythical heroes, Darth Vader and Satan. But now he's added to this list of models a real historical figure, announcing, quote, I am Thomas Cromwell in the courts of the Tudors, close quote. Now, Cromwell did rise to great heights as chief counselor to Henry VIII. He was indeed very powerful for a while. But Bannon seems to have forgotten that a few years later Cromwell was beheaded for heresy and treason. Whoops! And last week's C-SPAN initiated an investigation as to why the live feed covering congressional committees suddenly switched to the Kremlin-backed news channel Russia Today. The live stream continued to show RT for 10 minutes and then switched back to the live feed from Congress. Listen, that is truly spooky, not to speak of surreal. Time for another quick pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and if, like me, you're one of the women who went around saying, yeah, I am such a nasty woman, affirming nastiness after Trump accused Hillary of being that for actually contradicting him, well, nasty women out there, perk up, because this next guest will delight you especially.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again. And now for my next guest. Sady Doyle returns to the program. In 2008, Sady founded Tiger Beatdown, a pioneering blog which became wildly popular. And she's led several successful social media awareness campaigns, including #MenCallMeThings. She won the Women's Media Center's Social Media Award in 2011, and that's when she was first a guest on this program. But today she's back to talk about her first book, TrainWreck, The Women We Love to Hate, Mock, and Fear, and Why. Here's Sady Doyle. Welcome to the program, Sady.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it's quite a celebration. Congratulations on the book, TrainWreck, The Women We Love to Hate, Mock, and Fear, and Why. The last time we talked about your writing a book was when you received the first Women's Media Center Digital Award for your amazing blog, Tiger Beatdown.
Well, I think I'm glad that I didn't write a book when I was first starting out blogging. I think like a lot of bloggers, I was really self-taught. But this book sort of came together. I grew up really in the 2000s, which was the era of peak Trainwreck, where it seemed like there was always some woman in the media that we all hated and whose misfortune we all just adored, you know, watching and making fun of. You know, Paris Hilton or Britney Spears or Lindsay Lohan or.
Right.
The book itself sort of came together when I was in Texas, and I knew there was a concert going on by one of those women, Fiona Apple, and I was reading Mary Wollstonecraft's letters to Gilbert Imlay. And those letters, if you have ever read them, are just, yeah, they're harrowing. He completely abandoned her. She, you know, had just had a baby. Their relationship fell apart. He gaslighted her for months and months, telling her, "Oh, it's not over. I'll be right back." He was living with another woman. Yeah. You know, and she becomes suicidal. And it was amazing to me that this woman, Mary Wollstonecraft, who, you know, in my women's studies classes, she was always presented as sort of a dry figure. You know, she too had gone through tremendous turmoil. She had to negotiate her sex life and,
of course,
figure out how to have both sexual freedom and, non-abusive relationships. She had trouble with her own mental health, and taking care of herself. This woman I had been taught to respect was in many ways very close to women I had been taught to automatically judge and dismiss and despise, and she had been despised.
Yes,
and
she had.
I started wondering what would happen if I started connecting those dots. If I could take, 2016 and connect it to 1792, where else were the connections? And that's how the book sort of started to
connecting the dots. Always a good exercise. Always fascinating. Yeah. Well, I mean, to some people, the leap from Mary Wollstonecraft to Britney Spears, for example, would be too big a leap, but you certainly make it. I was reading along, and you make it in a number of other cases as well. I was reading along, and okay, so here's my hope that this is volume 1. Right? And that there'll be TrainWreck Volume 2, in which you're able to go into greater depth, because this is the first kaboom explosion on the subject, but in which you're able to then begin to sort of subcategorize them, because as I was reading, I was looking for Margaret Fuller, I was looking for Victoria Woodhull, I was looking for Maria Stuart, and for listeners who don't know, Margaret Fuller, of course, was early 19th century suffragist and who was a radical politically and also took lovers. Then Victoria Woodhull, of course, who was a well-known suffragist, was scandalous because she ran for president and stood on her platform of free love. Then Maria Stuart was the first American-born woman ever to dare speak in public, and she was not only female but she was black. So those I kept looking for them, and of course your point in this book is I realized I was barking up a neighboring tree, to mix my metaphors. Your point is that by looking at who we traduce, basically, is the best indication of which game of forbiddenness we're playing regarding women. So you're regarding it from the outside and as an indicator of what society says women may or may not do, which is highly crucial point to make. I would love to see your interesting brain go to work on the differences between a kind of passive resistance to those modes, which I could argue, maybe wrongly, Britney Spears and Paris Hilton fall into, versus an active violating of those mores, which Fuller, Woodhull, Stewart, and for that matter, Wollstonecraft fall into. In other words, where they're conscious rebels, and it's a sort of F you, I'm going to do what I want both in the public realm and in the private realm, whatever you think or say. Your point is a different one. Am I completely off the wrong tangent here?
No, I think that you are pointing to something in the book that I too wish I had gone into more detail to. Some women become train wrecks and are loathed because they are consciously opposing the norms of their society. And some women simply, fall afoul of our need for women not to be human.
Right.
I think Britney Spears is a really good example of that, because she was always, from the moment I saw her, in the late 90s show up as this perfect virgin teenage model who was, she was both a virgin and universally, sexy to everybody.
Right.
She was.
It's the virgin whore.
Yeah, exactly. She had to be both, and she had to be both before she was out of high school.
Right.
And she did it very well. And the moment she had even the slightest, people were outraged about her going to 7-Eleven, eating junk food, having a pimple. Like, people could not bear the thought that she was somehow human. And when it turned out that she had, we don't know, her doctors obviously can never tell us whether she has an organic mental illness or not, but it's widely speculated that she does have bipolar disorder.
Right.
When it turned out that she had real trauma to deal with and real pain and real turmoil, that, totally destroyed her.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the book, the reason that those women who are sort of, passively resistant, who are destroyed simply for being human or being hurt,
Right.
are there next to the women who consciously break boundaries, is that I think patriarchy works in many ways, but one of the ways it works is to strip women of their humanity entirely.
Absolutely.
Like, hopefully, as you read the book, you start to feel more and more suffocated with the sheer length of the list of things that you could do wrong.
Right, that's right.
You know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So,
and you do cast a wide net. I mean, it says Charlotte Bronte and there's Hillary Clinton, obviously, and Sylvia Plath and Billie Holiday and many more. So, but all I'm saying is I want more. And I sort of thought maybe there's three categories. I can't stop my mind from doing this kind of thing. Maybe there is the sort of Britney Spears helpless, I hate to say passive, but it's the blank screen on which is projected all of these things from outside. There's the rebel at the other extreme, and then there's somebody like in the middle. I could argue maybe Wollstonecraft is actually in the middle because she was a rebel in her intellect, but she just wanted to have a love life as well. And the same was true of Margaret Fuller. So there are the ones who don't mean to rebel in their personal lives. It's just a side occupation. There are the ones for whom rebelling is everything, and then there are the ones who never meant to rebel at all at anything. They're just trying to exist, and kaboom, and kaboom, everything falls on their head. So all I'm saying is, I think your audience deserves hello. May your publisher hear this. Deserves a second volume if you're up to doing it. It's also very funny and witty and personal book, which was very gutsy, Sadie. I'm not surprised, being you, but congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I think there are moments where I do talk about how I relate to these women, these media figures. Yeah. I talk about being in high school and really personally hating Britney Spears because I believed somehow that she was the reason I was getting catcalled. I thought,
I see.
There's this teenager who's showing grown men that we're all sexy and into their attention, and if she didn't do that, then grown men wouldn't be creepy to me and my friends. That's not how it works.
No.
But I think,
No, but we're trained to blame everybody but men.
Exactly.
And to blame everybody but patriarchy.
Yeah.
It couldn't be patriarchy. God, no, not. And in fact, men have totally different standards for themselves because, all the bad boys, men, it just enhances their reputation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Men who behave badly become legends. Look at, Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
Lived on a compound full of guns, and his most famous work was him, abusing whatever he could get his hands on.
James Brown, Lou Reed. It's almost easier to name men who were not train wrecks, are not train wrecks, than those who are. But it just enhances their railroads, as it were.
Exactly. Men are supposed to rebel. Men are supposed to break rules. But if you look at someone like Courtney Love, who I also talk about in the book as sort of like this monster that I was trained to grow up loathing, and who I, participated in making fun of, she hasn't done anything that Keith Richards wouldn't do. But she is seen as crazy and scary, whereas, Keith Richards is just a legend.
Yeah.
One reason I did include personal anecdotes in the book is that, it can be so easy to get sucked into a trap of only talking about how this affects famous women. And if you just, if you wrote a book that was like, well, people were probably too mean to Paris Hilton, what good is that book?
Right.
The way these images of women reflect down to us on the ground, the way they shape the way we relate to other women or the way we treat ourselves or the way we see ourselves,
right,
is where the real problem comes in.
Yes.
If we are constantly looking at women and seeing them as monsters, we are being trained to internalize misogyny, and we are being trained to really easily kick each other off the island just to maintain our own success or our own survival within patriarchy.
Precisely. TrainWreck, The Women We Love to Hate, Mock, and Fear, and Why, is a definite run out and buy it and read it. Thank you for the book, Sadie, and thank you for being with us on Women's Media Center Live. It's always great to talk with you.
Oh, I had a wonderful time. This was great. Thanks.
We have to have one more last brief pause. I'm Robin Morgan. This is Women's Media Center Live, and we'll be right back, and I'll have some fighting words for you.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again to some fighting words. Well, so Neil Gorsuch is Trump's nominee to fill the stolen seat on the Supreme Court. I, like many people, including some elected officials, call it a stolen seat because, as you remember, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to even consider former President Obama's nominee for almost an entire year. That was a radical, unprecedented power grab. McConnell also declared that should she have won, no Hillary Clinton nominee would be confirmed either. The seat in question was literally stolen by a Republican-controlled Senate that flatly refused to do its constitutional duty of advising and consenting. Hell, it wouldn't even convene a hearing for Merrick Garland, who was Obama's nominee, even though he had been highly praised by Republicans previously. Well, they were fine with an 8-person court then, so I say they'll have to be fine with an 8-person court now. But that's only possible if the Democrats stand up and act like senators. Sure, since Republicans still control the Senate, they can confirm Gorsuch if they can get enough Democrats to give in and slither across the aisle. But if the Democrats hold firm, and if the Democrats filibuster, it takes 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. Republicans only have 52, which leaves them with the unenviable choice of leaving the 9th seat unfilled, or blowing up the filibuster rules so they can ram Gorsuch through with a simple majority, the so-called nuclear strategy that Trump is urging on McConnell. Oh, how uncomfortable for Republicans. In 2013, they screamed bloody murder as Democrats got around Republican obstruction by ditching the filibuster for most judicial and political nominations except Supreme Court nominees. Now, some Democrats haven't gotten the message yet. Others are beginning to realize that the public, including their base, is energized and furious. In fact, demonstrators have been lobbying by picket at Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's home in Brooklyn, his home, hoping to stiffen his far too supple spine. It makes a difference, people. All your phone calls, emails, letters, visits to congressional offices back home, demonstrations. Nevertheless, 4 Senate Democrats crossed party lines to join every Republican in approving ExxonMobil CEO Tillerson as Secretary of State. Let's not forget them, or let them forget our disapproval. West Virginia Joe Manchin, North Dakota Heidi Heitkamp, Virginia's Mark Warner, and Maine's Angus King, an independent who caucuses with Democrats. Some Democrats did walk out of committee hearings scheduled to vote on 3 cabinet nominees, including Jeff Sessions for Attorney General, thus depriving the committees of a quorum, only to have the chairs change the rules again in unprecedented fashion. Other Democrats signaled an openness to having a committee vote on Trump's Supreme Court nominee. No. Dick Durbin of Illinois, Blumenthal of Connecticut, Coons of Delaware, Heidi Heitkamp again of North Dakota, Manchin of West Virginia, Claire McCaskill of Missouri, and Tester of Montana. These Democrats need to hear from us that we are not amused by their accommodationist positions. By the way, if you're feeling generous, a support note wouldn't hurt to Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who publicly opposed the Muslim ban and also has announced that she will vote against Betsy DeVos for Education Secretary, along with Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Now, even were this not a stolen Supreme Court seat, Gorsuch would be unacceptable. Senators tend to cling to qualified as a straw to escape from a vote of genuine conscience. But there should be no prevaricating about this, no whining that Gorsuch's position on abortion isn't really clear, is it? When all the friends of the fetus groups are dancing on rooftops at his nomination. Every anti-choice group is celebrating Gorsuch's record. His rulings in the Hobby Lobby and Little Sisters of the Poor cases, for instance, are as evidence of anti-abortion commitment. The cases, remember, both concerned the Affordable Care Act's Health and Human Services mandate requiring employers to cover contraceptive and abortifacient drugs in their health insurance plans. Both organizations objected to the mandate on religious grounds. So-called religious freedom, these days redefined by the right wing as the freedom to discriminate against women, gays and lesbians, non-Christians, etc. Well, militantly defending that kind of so-called religious freedom is Gorsuch's strong suit. Now, a leaked copy of a draft executive order titled Establishing a Government-Wide Initiative to Respect Religious Freedom was just obtained by The Nation magazine, and the 4-page draft reveals sweeping plans by Trump interests to legalize discrimination. It construes religious organizations so broadly that it covers, quote, any organization including closely held for-profit corporations, close quote. And it protects, in fact, it greatly expands its new definition of religious freedom in every walk of life. It is horrific. After the leak surfaced, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer mumbled, well, it's only a draft, and he had nothing more on that front as yet. Now, consider that draft executive order being signed by Trump, and then, of course, challenged in the courts, where it would make its way up to the Supreme Court. And there it would encounter the qualified, not so bad, could be worse, give him a chance, Neil Gorsuch, whose judicial specialty has for years been trying to expand, quote, religious freedom, even at the cost of the Constitution's Establishment Clause, Equal Protection Clause, and First Amendment. Wow, what a long-time wet dream of the evangelical right, the Roman Catholic Church, and anti-choice religious fundamentalists. Gorsuch has also been a voice for conservative activists and large corporations who want to gut protections for consumers, workers, clean air and water, and safe food and medicine. Moreover, he would be the youngest Supreme Court justice since Clarence Thomas was confirmed in 1998, which means he would be on the court for a long time. In an excellent op-ed piece in the New York Times, David Leonhardt reminded us just how drastic the denial of Obama's right to fill that stolen seat has been, just how damaging to the court and to our legal system. He urged Democrats not to treat this nomination as normal because this one is different. The process that led to Gorsuch's nomination was itself illegitimate. Those who counsel us to keep our powder dry and save the filibuster for down the road seem unable to see the cliff edge ahead. All along, Trump's strategy is to aim for the extreme position and then, if forced, backpedal. But if not stopped, he will get away with whatever he can. He admits this in so many words in his fake books. He calls it negotiation. The stolen seat Garland should have been sitting in for over a year should not be filled now. That's not stooping to the Republicans' level. It's playing by the new game the other side of the aisle has established. Go for the filibuster, Democrats. Rules protecting Senate minorities exist for a reason. So what are we waiting for? Let McConnell go nuclear. Ooh, does he ever not want to do that? Because then he owns it, and he knows the day will come when Republicans will need to filibuster. As we saw with the district judge's emergency rulings on the Muslim ban, we have two avenues left for now. One is the press. The other is the court system. Bottom line is they can put Gorsuch on the court, but let's not help them make it look as if it's bipartisan. This republic is based on the rule of law. Senate Democrats will have to face the principled rage of their constituents at the polls if they politely pretend this is a normal nomination process. It's not. Let the seat stand vacant. Oppose Gorsuch with whatever it takes, and then oppose the next one, and the next, and the next. The people are behind you, but only if you act like leaders. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and be sure to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMClive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes Worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check out my own website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.